Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak at your conference. To introduce myself, my name is Kent Chen. I'm the Director of Market Development for Blackboard Analytics, and I specialize in helping our clients understand how analytics and business intelligence can apply to delivering better education to their students. Now, as many of you are aware, the University of Pretoria is about to begin a project with Blackboard Analytics on specifically this topic. And what I wanted to do today was to give you an overview for what universities around the world are doing around this idea of learning analytics, and to give you a sense of what we will be delivering at the University of Pretoria over the next several months. Now, as we're describing and talking about analytics and learning analytics and what it actually means, I think that the best description of learning analytics was captured by a phrase, the third wave, by Malcolm Brown, the director of EDUCAUSE Learning Initiative. Now, Mr. Brown considers each one of these different waves as milestones or eras along an evolutionary path. Universities are trying to understand how instructional technologies can affect the relationships between the university and the student. Mr. Brown sees three major steps that have occurred along the way, with analytics being the third wave or the third major milestone along that evolutionary path. Now, the first two waves for how we got here today start off back in the late 1990s with the Learning Management System, or the LMS. The first wave was all about harnessing the power of the internet. In the late 1990s, the internet was gaining prominence, and universities needed a scalable way to manage the digital presence of their courses online. Well, over about the course of a decade, by the mid to late 2000s, universities were no longer asking if they needed an LMS and if an LMS was vital. They were now asking themselves the question of which LMS should they adopt? We know it's vital. Where do we go from here? The second wave started in the late 2000s, and it was all about Web 2.0. It was all about social and cloud and connectivity and every other buzzword you could think of from the past 4 years. The core idea behind this second wave was access to education anytime, anywhere. And we've seen this with some of the Blackboard offerings as well, with Blackboard Collaborate and Blackboard Mobile, where we want students to be able to connect anytime, anywhere. And we see students respond to that. Students will change their learning patterns because this type of connectivity is available. And institutions will deliver and create different teaching methods based on the fact that these technologies are available. Well, that brings us to where we are today, the third wave, or the third major milestone of learning analytics. To date, we've seen universities adopt the different technologies available to them, like the LMS and like some of the Web 2.0 technologies. Now we need an understanding, and a firm understanding of how these technologies are actually being used, what type of measurements do we have available to help measure the success of students as they're using these tools to learn, and what can the university do to respond and deliver higher quality education around these tools. Now, I happen to think that everyone in the room today is in a very good spot, because we're all on the forefront and the start of a discussion around how this technology can shape education. And over the next few years, I think that this topic of analytics is just going to explode. It's going to be the top of every conversation in every conference and in every meeting that you're going to have focused on education. So I think it's important to understand what analytics actually means and what we can do about it. Now, analytics, I believe, revolves around two key fundamental concepts. The first of these two fundamental concepts is a simple question. Is student activity a valid indicator of student success? And this question is really just asking, is the amount of work that a student puts in a good indicator of whether or not that student is learning? Now, this is really going to be the leap of faith, or the jumping off point for a lot of our clients. People need to either believe in this idea before they jump into analytics, or they tend not to believe this. Personally, I believe yes, that student activity can be used as an indicator. And the reason that I believe this is because we see evidence of this today in the way that education is being delivered. If you think about a face-to-face classroom experience, when students and instructors actually come into the same room and they speak and they talk and interact face-to-face, the instructor will do things like take attendance or give class participation grades. What the instructor is really doing is trying to gain measurements or indicators that a student is learning. If we see that a student comes to class every day, they sit in front, they raise their hand, and they ask good questions, we, as an instructor, may get a pretty good sense that, yeah, that student is learning, that student is engaged. Now, if we take that concept of using these indicators or patterns of what a student does to measure their learning or their engagement, we can take that concept and move it into the digital realm and to see what type of digital footprint they're leaving behind in some of these educational technologies that they're using, such as Blackboard Learn. And once we start looking into the digital realm, we can start answering some of the key questions that universities have been trying to answer for the past several decades, such as, how do I measure student engagement? Now, we hear this question a lot around student engagement when it comes to student retention or student success or identifying at-risk students. The idea is, I need a way to be able to measure and predict how well a student is going to do based on more than just grades. Previously, we had only grades available. Previously, we saw that if a student failed a midterm exam or they failed a final exam, then they'd be in trouble. But I would argue that if we wait for a student to fail a midterm exam, then it's already too late. They are already in trouble, and it's too late for us to act. So, is there a way for us to be able to identify these students that need our help before they ever walk into the final exam and take that test? Now, if we start exploring that area, we may want to start asking other questions, like, is there a relationship between the amount of work a student puts in and their performance? If we can find other ways to identify and prove patterns in student behavior, for example, their participation, then we will be able to have indicators to predict how well or how poorly they're going to do in the future. This way, we have tools to help us know that a student is going to be in trouble before they ever take a midterm or a final exam and actually perform poorly on that exam. We may also want to know whether or not our learning management system adoption rate is growing as predicted. Now, we hear this question being asked from a couple of different perspectives. We hear it being asked from the perspective of whether institutions are actually using and adopting Blackboard Learn to help prove that their investment in e-learning was a valid investment. But we also see this question being asked quite commonly from the people involved with questions number 1 and 2 as well. These people have seen the value of having timely, fast access to data. They were able to prove some success by having that data, and now they want to be able to get more data to be able to help them. Now, the second key concept of analytics is that information needs are going to vary. Today in the room, we have a group of colleagues from all over the university. And what we need to realize is that each one of our colleagues is going to want information in a slightly different way, and they're going to want to use this information in a slightly different way as well. Right? We all have different roles to play, so the information that I need may be different than the information needs of the person sitting next to me. So whatever mechanism we put in place has to be able to be flexible enough to respond to the different needs of the users or the different needs of the data consumers that are going to need this information. Now, in Blackboard Analytics, we provide 3 different major ways to access this information. And these three major ways are primarily targeted at three different types of users that need to consume this data. Now, given the time today, we'll take a very quick look at what two of these three methods are to give you an idea of what Blackboard Analytics can do and what we hope to deliver at the University of Pretoria over the next few months. The first of these three major reporting types is going to be a dashboard. Now, a dashboard is a very high-level and visual way for customers and users to know what's going on in my institution today. We provide around 8 to 10 default template dashboards out of the box, just to be used as a starting point for customers to create their own dashboards. What we're looking at here is one of those sample template dashboards. This is what we call the Dean dashboard. Now, this Dean dashboard was created for the fictional dean of a fictional university. And this dean wanted the ability to just quickly know what's going on in my project today. Now, on this dashboard, you'll notice that we're representing information in a very visual way. We see a series of bar graphs, and we see a series of charts, all showing us information that is most relevant to this dean and to his or her project. Now, on this dashboard, there are going to be two key areas that I wanted to bring your attention to. The first of these two areas is the series of drop-down menus up at the top. Now, these drop-down menus represent different areas that the dean wanted to focus on, like their college or department, their academic term, academic level, and instruction methods. What these drop-down menus represent are called slicers. A slicer allows me to quickly focus and retarget my report to an area that I want my reports to reflect. So, for example, if I were to select a different academic term, my dashboard would update in near real time and update the reports dynamically to reflect whatever selections I had made on my drop-down menus or my slicers. Now, what we're seeing here with the slicers is the first peek at what a true analytics application can do. It provides us speed of access to information so that I can get the information that I need in near real time in an on-demand fashion. Now, the second key area on this dashboard that I wanted to bring your attention to was this scorecard here in the upper left. This scorecard is tracking 8 measurements that this dean is focused on, represented both by an actual measurement of performance of what's happening today against a target performance benchmark or a target performance goal. What these 8 measurements represent are the key performance indicators, or the KPIs, for this dean's project. And what we did here with the dashboard, where we took these 8 most important measurements that this dean had requested and put it front and center on an easily accessible report and an easily accessible dashboard, so that this dean has one place to go to know what's going on in my project or my department today. Now, these dashboards provide a great high-level overview of what's going on. But we may need to drill down and to focus a little bit into more detail over exactly what it is that we're doing and what we have to work with. This is where some of the analysis reports or the CAN reports can come into play. Now, what we're looking at here is an example of an analysis report that allows us to visualize some of the data that we have available. This analysis report shows a comparison of course interactions versus grade scatter plot. What that means is we're measuring how much work a student is putting in, measured here in the bottom, versus what grade they're getting, measured here on the left. Now, by visualizing this data, I can see that most of my students in this class are performing pretty well. They're putting in about the average amount of work, and they're getting a good grade for it. They're getting above the course average of an 85%. These students are not the ones that I'm worried about. When I look at this report, I also notice 2 groups of outliers. Right? I see one student here represented by the yellow box, all the way on the right, Marcia Dias. This information tells me that Marcia is putting in a lot more work than anybody else in the class, but she's not getting a high return for that extra work. She's doing reasonably well at an 81% or an 82%, but that's not significantly higher compared to this significantly greater amount of work she's putting in. That is an area of interest to me, but I'll leave Marcia for a different day. Today, what I'm focused on are these two dots here at the bottom that I circled and highlighted in red. These two students are represented by two students named Lynn Nishi and Bernice Jones. These two students are putting in about average or below average work, and they're doing very poorly. They're about to fail out. I could look at these two dots and say, these two students aren't doing very well. Let me do some more investigation to see what's going on here. Now, if I were to click on any one of these dots, I have the ability to drill down and find out more information about one of those students. We get brought down to a student at a glance report. This student at a glance report for this student, Lynn Nishi, shows me all of the intelligence that my institution has around Lynn and how she's been interacting with her e-learning tools. We see that Lynn is a third-year student studying mechanical engineering, and she's in good academic standing. We can also see how much work she's been putting in the past compared to her class peers. And we can see that Lynn's performance, represented by the blue bars and the blue lines, is above her peer average, represented by the gold, in nearly all the different dimensions that we're measuring. So we know that Lynn is putting in the work for her classes. As we scroll down, we get to see the complete academic history of Lynn at my university. I can see what courses she's taken in the past. Over here on the right, I can see what grade that she's taken in the past, and I can see what courses she's currently taking and the grade that she's currently getting. Now, if I were to look at Lynn's academic record here, I can see that Lynn has done reasonably well in the past. Right? She's gotten some A's, some B's, and some C's, but she's been doing the work and she's been passing her classes. But I can see that for this current academic term, Lynn is performing poorly in nearly all the different courses in which she's enrolled. I may look at this student at a glance report and get a better picture of what's going on with Lynn. This is not characteristic of this student. They performed well in the past and they put a lot of work in the past, but something's going on during this academic term. Something doesn't look right. So what I may do, based on having this information, is that I may speak to one of my colleagues in academic advising and say, hey, look, Lynn has been a good student in the past, but she's having some trouble now. Maybe we should talk to Lynn and see if there's something that the university can do to help her. Does she need some additional tutoring to help her with her work? Or does she need her course load adjusted to accommodate something else that may be going on in Lynn's life? Let's see what the university can do to help make Lynn successful and turn this performance around. And I'm able to make these decisions and take these actions based on the fact that I have this information available to me in a quickly and easily accessible way. Blackboard Analytics aims to provide our clients with a fast, easy way to get access at a high level in a very visual way so that you can know what's going on, and provide the tools necessary to really drill down into the details to be able to explore the data further and come to some conclusions based on having this information available. So I wanted to thank you all very much for your time today and for the opportunity to speak to you. We will be having a question and answer session after the rest of the panel speakers have had a chance to present. So please feel free to forward any questions that you have to the moderator, and we will address them later on. Thank you very much.